I'm bigcal and welcome to my world. Today it is time for a non-recent video games pickups video where I show off some stuff that I bought that aren't video games. So firstly we have a book and it's from Legends, so it's no longer canon because Disney gonna Disney. Yeah, I actually thought I owned this book. Hold on actually. I thought this book was this, the Cestus Deception. I read through this recently, it's like, wait a minute, what I thought was going to happen never happened. How strange. Turns out, the wrong book. So it's like, okay, what's the right book that I need? Yoda, Dark Rendezvous. Yeah. So basically what this book is Dooku contacts Yoda and claims he wants to make peace and return to the Jedi. Now obviously Yoda and everybody else thinks it's a trap. And it is. Almost. There's just a very great story of Dooku almost coming back to the light side, Yoda almost bringing him back and things like this. Some really funny moments as well with Yoda in there that for like a 900-year-old Grandmaster of the Jedi Order, he should not be doing those things, but he does, and it's hilarious. Yeah, it's just a really complex story built in there that weaves in and out of will he, won't he, is it a trap, isn't it a trap, maybe it is a trap but it's going to turn into real, and you're just never really sure what's going to happen. Obviously you know how it's going to end because we know Dooku doesn't go back to the light side, but it's still a thrilling story to begin with. Yeah, I read through this in about 2 days. Yeah, I was that into it, and I had a lot of time to read it while I was through Sheffield doing some filming for my brother. In between setting up shots and things, I was reading this, and I read a lot of it. Yeah, so fantastic book, very happy with that. Star Wars books, always really fun. Now we have a ton of DVDs and a Blu-ray. Right, so DVDs, we have stand-ups for the most part. I think they're all stand-ups, yeah. See, with my depression, when I'm feeling really down, one of the things I do like to do to try and cheer myself up is watch some stand-up comedy. There are a couple of stand-up comedians these days that I do enjoy and will watch and things like that, but most of the ones I really enjoy from, mid to late 90s to, through to the early mid-2000s, a little bit, some 2010s in there as well. From that time period, that's the comedy that I really enjoy the most, those comedians. So yeah, been buying a bunch of them, watched them all almost. I think I've just some of these to watch here that I'll show off. But yeah, I've just had an absolute blast. Really helps cheer me up. So firstly, I picked up every single Lee Evans stand-up DVD. So firstly, this lovely box set of 7 DVDs, which I got for like £4 on Music Magpie. Crazy. Yeah, because this would have been like £30 when it first came out, probably. Maybe even more. Yeah, so I've only watched the first 2 or 3 of these. But yeah, the Live in Scotland one's on here. Cannot wait to get that. That was one of my absolute favourite stand-up comedy live shows ever, way back in the day. And of course, that was the first 7, then he had 2 others that came out later. Roadrunner, Live at the O2, and Lee Evans' Monsters. He's retired now from stand-up comedy, but yeah, back in his day he was fantastic, absolutely hilarious. Yeah, so I'm going to have to finish off watching all of those. Next we have another box set of the Rod Gilbert, the Welsh comedian, his 3 stand-up shows. Got this as well from Music Magpie, and 2 of the 3 that came with it were still sealed. I've opened one of them to watch, and this one is still sealed, but yeah, just because I watched the one that's still sealed, I watched on YouTube. It was on his official channel. Sometimes comedians will just post their live stand-up shows now on YouTube and things because the DVDs are out of production, you can't buy them anyway, so if they're going to make some money, they'll put them on the YouTube channel, make a bit from, ad revenue maybe. Yeah, so Rod Gilbert, we have firstly Rod Gilbert and the award-winning mince pie, that caused him to have a breakdown, which is hilarious. The one that I watched on YouTube how it opened is Rod Gilbert and the cat that looked like Nicholas Lyndhurst. Yeah, Nicholas Lyndhurst, well known as Rodney from Only Fools and Horses, and other things, of course, as well. Good Night, Sweetheart. Yeah, that's also a hilarious stand-up. And Rod Gilbert, the man with the flaming Battenberg tattoo. Another crazy story. Yeah, and he's just absolutely hilarious because he reminds me a lot of me in that he gets really angry and frustrated and anxious about basic, simple, everyday things. Yeah, and he's just hilarious when he breaks down on stage. Yeah, so Rod Gilbert, fortunately was diagnosed with cancer not too long ago. He was due to do another live show and he got diagnosed with cancer, so hopefully he pulls through and he's okay, and hopefully we can get some more stand-up comedy out of him because he's a genius. Yeah. And I mentioned I was through at Sheffield, doing stuff for my brother, recording, and that was for every Monday, pretty much, for like a 2-month period, maybe a little bit more. So when I was going into Sheffield, and before meeting up with him, I would nip into Sex, see what they had on offer. Nothing in terms of games, really, but DVDs, and stand-up ones, they had plenty. Yes, quite a few here. Yeah, so 4 of them here we got out of Sex and One Day, all £1 each. And first we have Al Murray, the pub landlord, giving it both barrels. Yeah, this was one of my favourites as well, back in the day. If I'm not mistaken, let's see, what year was this one out? Because I don't know if there was one before this or not. Yeah, 2005, so there'd been the one before, but yeah, his first stand-up DVD, I remember the day I was to start my first ever job after I'd left school. I was nervous as hell, so I watched an Al Murray stand-up DVD to calm me down before I started the job. Yeah, it really helped. Yeah, and this was his second live stand-up DVD, and it's hilarious. The thing you have to go into though with the pub landlord is a lot of stuff he's saying no comedian would really get away with saying today. Some of it's like, oh come on, it's just comedy, and then some stuff it's like, yeah, he wouldn't get away with saying that, and you would be absolutely right to utterly destroy him for it. So it was from a different time. But as well as that, you have to go in the context that Al Murray is an incredibly intelligent man, and the pub landlord is a persona, and he's basically mocking that kind of person with this persona. Yeah, so he's one of those. He's very British. The England especially. The rest of the Britain not so much, but it's British. Beer. Men. Women should just be 2 jobs: nurse and secretary. They're not allowed to drink beer. They have to have wine or fruit-based drink. So he's got that sexist part to him, definitely. But it's done, like I said, to mock those kind of people. And then he also uses some of their stuff against them in a very smart way, and he's just absolutely hilarious. And one of the really great things about Al Murray is when you watch his show, like the first 20, sometimes 30 minutes of his stand-up is him talking to the audience. And he comes up with utterly fantastic stuff just out of nowhere, just from what the audience tells him. Now, the stand-up comedians, obviously, they can, say something to the audience, talk to a couple of members, and that's it, They can't do a full routine basically doing that, because it's very difficult. You don't know what the audience is going to say if you're going to be able to get anything out of that. Al Murray can seemingly do it for an entire show if he wanted. He doesn't, but, he just keep going back to the audience members and things and bringing up stuff they said and done, and he's just fantastic at it. His comedy will not be for everybody, especially this day and age when some of the things, like I said, he says is simply unacceptable. Some of it I still find funny. It's like, yeah, that's good. Some of it's like, come on, really? Yeah, but apart from that, I do still enjoy it. Guilty pleasure or not, I don't know. I like it. Whatever. Yeah. Next, we have Jason Manford live at the Manchester Apollo fantastic northern comedian. After Peter Kay came out, a ton of sort of like northern comedians came out of the woodwork and all doing their sort of similar style, observation comedy and, oh, when you were a kid, do you remember this and that happened? And he does a lot of that as well, but in his own style and things like that, and he's really good at it. Fantastic. And also Jason Manford live. I don't know which one came out first. Maybe that one looks a bit younger there, maybe. Yeah, again, just more of the sort of same observational comedy, but it's really good. Fantastic. Then, of course, we have Scottish comedian Kevin Bridges. The story so far, hilarious, because he has a very different take to a lot of British comedians growing up in Scotland, despite the fact we're so close. We're all part of Britain. Scotland's very different to England in a lot of ways, especially when he was growing up. Yeah, absolutely hilarious. He's fantastic. And then I picked this one up as well, I think out of Poundland for 50 pence. 50 pence, that's a whole different story. One of his newer ones from 2015. Very, very funny still, of course, because his stand-ups are sort of in chapters of his life. His first one, he talks a lot about growing up and things and that. And then as he goes on, he talks about the last few years of his life and how it's changed. How comedy's changed him. Getting famous has changed. He's moved up in the world, so to speak. He's got money in a nice house now. And the area that he lives in is different. And he just pulls comedy out of all of that. Really, really fun stuff. Fantastic. Yeah, so, a lot of comedy. I've needed a lot of comedy lately, yes. And lastly, Blu-ray, not comedy at all. Not very funny, very serious film in a lot of ways. Very good film, and that is Get Carter. Michael Caine, obviously the star. Not to be confused with the remake Get Carter, starring Sylvester Stallone, and a cameo from Michael Caine. That version should never be watched by anyone. The original version, though, fantastic. Get Carter, obviously, Carter, he's a mobster from down in London. Well, that's where he lives now, and he's down there. He comes back up to his home because his brother has been killed and he wants to find out what happened. Really big, kind of disturbing story that gets unravelled and things. He's going out for revenge, and the ending is up there as maybe one of my favourite endings of a film. It's no The Long Good Friday kind of ending, but just it comes out of nowhere really. You don't expect it, but it's really well done, and I very much enjoy it. So excellent, excellent film. And those are all the non-gaming pickups that I've picked up recently. So, I'm bigcal. Thanks for watching. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of my pickups. Let me know what you've got recently. And I'll see you again next time.